Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, I, Nirupma Sharma, welcome all the panelists, dignitaries, and Joint Secretary to this important webinar. As we are all aware that recent ordinances have been announced in the last month, and we are aware that agriculture ecosystem is about to evolve. So it becomes pertinent for us to discuss the feedback on the ordinances from the government and from the industry. To take this forward, ASSOCHAM is organizing this important webinar. And to take this forward officially, I would now request Mr. Sagar Kaushik, a senior member, ASSOCHAM and CEO UPL Limited, to give his welcome and opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Anupma ji, for giving this opportunity to me. Good evening and welcome to ASSOCHAM webinar on One Nation, One Agriculture Market in the broader context of doubling farmers' income. First of all, I welcome Shri P.K. Swain, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. I also welcome Shri G. Chandrasekhar ji, a well-known figure. And also I would like to welcome the industry stalwarts who are presenting from across the agriculture value chain here, and also to all the participants who actually come from the professional career. And I also heard that a good number of young students who are aspiring not to become farmer but to become the agri-business partners for future. Is very, very important that we are able to really attract the attention of large number of participants today. So thanks to ASSOCHAM for having it achieved. Doubling the farmers' income as a topic, and under the One Nation, One Agriculture Market, I am delighted to join this important discussion today. And with the significant reforms in agriculture, which are already visible, that want to shape One Nation, One Agriculture Market, the Union government has announced 3 key reforms. And under the Atmanirbhar Bharat thrust package, focusing on agriculture and allied sectors were amongst the vital aspect of rupees 20 lakhs crores stimulus package, which has been announced by the government in the month of May. And basically, that was a fight or to COVID, or the response to COVID for our economy stimulus. The government announced rupees 1.63 lakh crore package and amended the Essential Commodity Act to deregulate cereals, deregulate pulses, deregulate potatoes and onions. These were the crops at one time. These have been in the scarcity. So of course now we have the other side of thing to witness, where there are problems or issues of plenty. So rightly the government has taken this move, and this effort is to boost the this specific agriculture sector, and the consequence hopefully would be the increase in farmers' income. The another approval is for the farming produce trade ordinance, which has come, and that allows farmers to sell or to discover the place and the price on his own, and he has to just use his PAN card. So I think so much of flexibility, so much of freedom a producer could avail, and on a nation the size of the nation like ours, I think that's a very, very, very timely and a fantastic move which has happened in the interest of the agribusiness. The next decision is to make amendment in the Union government has passed the Farmers Agreement on Price Assurance Ordinance, and this will facilitate the engagement of farmers or FPOs, the Farmers Producer Organization, with the processors, aggregators, retailers, and exporters of the food. The intention behind these reforms is to free the Indian agriculture from the earlier limitations which were imposed, perhaps for the good reasons in the past, which is the permit raj or the mandis, which were originally designed to, in response to the frequent periodic scarcity of one or the other item or the commodity with us. These moves now will give more freedom to farmers to trade their produce. The agriculture industry is moving from a supply-driven economy to a demand-driven supply chain as a result of these reforms. Companies will have freedom to ask the producer, which means the farmers, what they want. And as per the market demand, the communication flow will become pretty smooth, and at least farmers will be much more informed that in the next 3, 4, 5 months, which commodities will be more in demand and from which part of the country those demands and all may be originating. So I think that also brings another big advantage, huge advantage to work. And I must also say that, it is not the change which will happen between the purchaser of the farm goods and the farmer. I think the young students sitting here, they would also see lots of opportunity to bring their products to make these two things to happen. That how to work on the demand, how to work on the logistics. There could be, I would say, hundreds of the startups which could just start just to solve this problem, because there is a uh, bureaucratic connection which has been built, but I think the bridge is much longer than that. So I think there is an opportunity, and that also can be translated into the business. So the true art actually lies in the seamless implementation of these reforms to ensure that there is a much reduced harassment to farmers, and also the whole process becomes much more smoother in terms of its flows. So therefore, with these, today's seminar is an effort that we understand government's point of view, and we have the people who have much more deeply studied these reforms. So I think we could address those specific questions. And also there are other stakeholders, like the industry. I am from UPL, and we are into the agriculture, agrochemical inputs, seeds, and other input side. We are quite active. So therefore, we are also a big stakeholder as far as these changes are concerned. So we hope that we will have a very fruitful discussion today, and we should be able to create at least some thoughts that what more is required in terms of the implementation, so that these reforms are well understood and they create a good flow on the intended target of the government. So with this, I now open this session for discussion, and thank you, Anupma, and I hand over the rest of the conversation to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for setting the tone for this webinar today. I would now request our chief guest, Mr. P.K. Swain, for his valuable feedback.
Thank you, Anupama ji. Hope I am audible. And of course, thank you, Sagar Saab, for setting a beautiful tone for this entire discussion. You have succinctly brought it out, the entire flow as to why and how and when it was done. This entire move towards one nation, one market, and all the distinguished audience, Mr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Murli Manohar, and others. It's my privilege to be here with you, and certainly I thank ASSOCHAM for inviting me to speak on this one nation, one market with reference to agri-produce, and particularly in the context of improving farmers' income, that is doubling of farmers' income is the reference that you must be referring to. Certainly, like agriculture as a subject and agriculture as the livelihood has been holding attention of all of us since, time immemorial. We speak about generally the post-independence era, but if you look at that, Indian agriculture and Indian culture, they're intertwined. Indian culture and Indian agriculture, it is intertwined. Unlike the West, where probably agriculture could be industry, it's a part of our household culture. And nearly 60% of our population is dependent on this. To call it a special culture or agriculture, but it is a culture of India. Human civilization flourished from there on itself. It was basically the agriculture through which the human civilization flourished by the side of the rivers. If you look at the independence, post-independence, from a deficit agriculture, we have moved to almost a surplus. The production orientation, which we gave our planners, earlier planners and forefathers brought in to Indian agriculture, has made us today self-sufficient in most of the areas. With about 285 million metric ton plus food grains and more than 315 million metric ton of horticulture produced probably, we are one of the powerhouse in agriculture globally. We may say it second globally or even in food grains, but in many of the commodities, as you know, we are number one or even number two globally. I need not reiterate them, but that's the knowledge of the house. So definitely the question comes when our majority of the people are dependent on agriculture, how do we, that is the farmer, who is the food giver to us, who is contributing substantially to Indian economy, how do you ensure remunerative prices for him? If the farmer is happy, the nation is happy. We have seen when the agriculture gets into a difficult phase, the economy also gets into a difficult phase, because agriculture also supplies raw material to industry. Let us not forget that. So if agriculture is moving smoothly, then economy is also in a driving seat. That we saw during this COVID situation, when other sectors of economy were actually underperforming, such as
So you got muted. Sorry to interrupt, sir. You got muted. So we are not able to hear you.
Ma'am, maybe some internet bandwidth issue from Secretary.
one of Shastriji, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, I think it does the honor to the nation by honoring the farmers very clearly. So if you see this in India, how do we monetize this farmers' produce? That is certainly the market, the marketing, the trade. We have the regulated wholesale markets. We have the village hearts. We have a procurement system, which is basically a fallback mechanism. Then we have also the export system. We are exporting. We are 7th largest exporter globally, and we have a objective of achieving doubling of export by 2022, like doubling of farmers' income. So from $30 billion to $60 billion by then. But then if you see, the domestic market plays a very important role in incentivizing the farmers. And particularly, I'm leaving out the retail market, I'm talking about the wholesale market. We have got about 7,000 markets all over India, which are regulated in the regulated space, regulated by the State Agriculture Produce Marketing Committees Act by the respective state, because it's a state subject. As like in the Constitution of India, if you see Article 14, that's agriculture is a kind of state subject. So also agriculture market, entry 28, if you see the state list. So coming back to this, so these markets which have been there since, I think the regulation started even before the independence, to basically meet the requirement of Britishers, have undergone changes, and most of these acts were formulated in state APMC acts were in 60s and 70s. They became out, a little bit of archaic, and so came the 2003 Model APLM Act, which is given to reform them to create alternative marketing channels. So from APMC, we saw the emergence of private market. We saw the emergence of the direct marketing, which were licensed again. Then also contract farming. But then contract farming was a part of the APMC Act. It was part of the APMC Act driven by the state APMC Act. But then over a period of time, when you realize that these markets are still not able to meet, despite because the growth of private market and the direct marketing are not in commensurate with what it was expected. So obviously, the second generation of reforms were brought in, that is APLM Act, Model APLM Act, as you must be knowing, which was provided to even further liberate that. While liberating further the private market concept, the licensing concept, the direct marketing concept, it was also allowed that we should bring in warehouse as the deemed market. That was a new addition that was made. There is a deregulation to fruits and vegetables because the capital investment in the fruits and vegetable value chain is capital intensive. So to promote the investment other than the public sector investment, this was allowed. And to that basket was added one very, very important reform, that is e-trading. Though some of the states had started doing, particularly Karnataka, and others followed it gradually. So 2017 model brought in the e-trading into this space. The basic purpose of this e-trading was to join the standalone market to create a national market concept, because otherwise these physical markets were behaving like standalone. The traders were limited to that market. Handful of traders will determine the price in the bidding. The farmers was to sell it to the even if the law never said farmer is not free to sell anywhere. Farmer was theoretically was free to sell anywhere, but he was being compelled by the system to sell it to the licensed traders. And given that market area structure in those APMCs, so obviously it was a honeycomb approach where farmers were only could access the nearest market which they could reach, which is accessible to them, and could sell, but then subject to the bidding or the trading culture of that market. So what happens is that in that case, the market access to the farmer is limited by the market to which physically he is able to access. But how is it that the traders of other markets can also be available to this farmer? So that is the concept of the national market which came in this model APLM Act, which gave the trading, and it coincided with the e-NAM, e-National Agriculture Market. It's very clearly it came up, and the e-National Agriculture Market, if you see the terminology, it is National Agriculture Market is built into that. And the first wave of the first cabinet decision was to provide for 585 markets to be connected to this virtual platform, which will join the traders of other markets to take a bid anywhere, and the farmers can then sell to any trader in that, subject to condition that this e-NAM will come to those states which have taken 3 reforms, particularly critical reforms, that is unified license, then single point levy of market fee apart from e-trading. One, of course, simultaneously which is happening is the GST, because GST is also a front runner in uniting the market. It is, I'm not talking alone of the agriculture, but it is in other areas also it was connecting the markets well. And other development I could attribute is the development of the roads infrastructure, the highways. It was joining them physically, because the movement of agricultural commodities also very essential in integrating the market. Various studies I have seen in World Bank and IMF and even in the USA universities. The integration takes place where the joining transportation system, joining the markets also improves pretty well. So given this, the e-NAM rode on those aspects. Of course, the GST is still applicable to oilseeds and even your crops like I'm told cotton and jute. I mean, some of these commercial crops, etc., plus processing. So definitely that is one segment of commodities which is getting, I mean, integrated. At the same time, ENAM provided for a facility of joining the markets in a unified trade. Today, we have come up to 1,000 markets integrated over this. In fact, during this COVID period, we realized that APMC, despite the reforms of a model APLM, the farmers, when I started setting up the call centers, in the March itself, when the lockdown was progressing state by state, national lockdown was yet to come on 25th of March. I apprehending that it may come, so I started putting them in the WhatsApp, all the state marketing board, and put the call centers. I told them to set up the call centers, and because the truck movements are getting affected, we said throughout the night we'll monitor the truck movements for the fruits and vegetables, and let us join hand, be determined to work throughout the night and day to ensure that it moves. And from 25th onward, we really worked hard. 25th March onward, to when the markets got closed, we got it open through a social distancing protocol, sanitary protocol, and awareness campaign. I gave them a 12-point program to undertake in every market before opening up, so that there is a safety of our farmers ensured in these markets, because I could see the markets have the hotspots in abroad, like in the Spain and other countries. I was monitoring. So they are getting the hotspots for the epicenter for this COVID. So while opening it, we realized that still the supply chain breakdown was causing trouble to the farmers. So if you remember, on 4th of April, we gave that famous order to the states requesting them to allow the direct marketing facilitate without licensing regime. So that was the beginning when I realized that let us open up the space to the farmers, so that the farmers get connected. Any industry will directly buy from the farmers without a licensing facility. So though it was moving slowly, we realized we have to open up fast. Even the procurement centers, we widespread the procurement centers, so that at least the farmers get the procurement facility nearer to them, instead of coming all the way to APMC every time. While doing it, you realized that we need to do something more, because the farmers, when the agriculture is moving, it's one sector which is moving very fast. I mean, it is working hard. It was the harvest time. Actually, lockdown came around the harvest time when we got aware and we started working on that. We realized we need to open more market access to them. So that is how came the question of this ordinance, the Trade and Commerce, Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Ordinance, which is actually the area where, I mean, which is the one which actually confined the APMCs to the physical boundary. Opening of the trades outside the market area, which is there, original market area under the APMC Act, which it took it out, and it was declared as the trade area. So if you look at the trade area, if you take out all the license points under the APMC Act within the state, all these free areas are like we realized in the APMC Model APLM Act, there is one thing that this regulation should be confined to within the APMC, but the states are not able to come up in that claim. When you join this trade area of all the states, it becomes a national market automatically. So it is complementing what effort we have done with the ENAM. So trade area will be able to join this of the states. So to liberalize that, to intrastate and interstate trade concept liberalizing came through, and the famous ordinance of the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance was then brought in, which actually, while doing so, we realized alternative marketing channels have to be built. This is one alternative. We are not saying APMC is bad or APMC should be closed. No, APMCs have done a good job so far, and we need to find good alternative marketing channels to the farmers. So, like we created in 2003 alternative marketing channels of private market and contract farming, and also direct marketing. And in 2017 we took out the 2017 we took out the contract farming from the APMC Act, and in 2018 we gave a model contract farming act. Here we actually gave this another called trade area. This is a parallel channel for for farmers, which will actually build up a national market. So that is how this came, and along with that, we have also given the farming produce assurance, price assurance, which is nothing but a central under the Indian Contract Act. It's a central legislation which will facilitate the organization sponsors, as you have, as Mr. Sagar Kaushik was saying, the processing industries, exports, value chain organizations, big retailers. They can now join hands with the producers in a contract platform which is being given. So to have contract farming, because contract farming is also a very good instrument of assuring the prices for a particular quality produce that the farmer produces under proper guidance. While doing it, the Essential Commodities Act also helps us, because then it ensures the investment for the future, brings in a lot of assurance to the investors, lot of comfort to them, that at least there is some kind of comfort for them, that even if they're investing in the warehouses, so this Essential Commodities Act is giving them a peace of mind that certainly it is they're safe. So that is why all these three ordinances of the first, as the third tranche of the Atmanirbhar Bharat is helping us to take it forward, where we are liberalizing the farmers, assuring the investors to invest, telling the processors, industries, and exporters to come forward and to add their value to the entire society, work with the farmers, and bring in this national market. Because what happens is, if the supply chain gets integrated from farm gate to the fork, the share of the price of the farmer in the entire price scale enhances for the farmer. So that means the income for him improves, the post-harvest losses reduces, and then the quality improves in the entire system for the consumer. That means it becomes a win-win situation for the nation. So from Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are certainly going to one nation, one market, this Shrestha Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So thank you all of you. And in fact, if you see, we have now recently come up with the aggregation model of FPO. Because if you see the per hectare land, if you see about 1 hectare per farm holding in India, compare it with the almost 180 hectare in USA. So there is a huge scale gap. So in USA, if a single farmer can connect to the market or to the supermarket in his own brand name, in India, that can be created through an aggregation model, and the farmer producer organizations, that 10,000 that we have now come up with a central sector scheme of formation and promotion of 10,000 farmer producer organizations by 2023-24 is a determination of the government to aggregate them, so that the marketing becomes easy, brand building is easy, market linkage becomes easy, processing becomes easy. They can federate at the district level, they can federate at the state level, and they'll do their own asset building. They'll be able to connect. There will be beautiful skill development will be taking place of this farming group. There will be a lot of formal training programs are there. There will be credit guarantee facility, there will be equity grant facility, and certainly these farmer producer groups, FPOs, which will be registered under the Companies Act Part 9 or the Cooperative Societies Act of the states, can take it forward. And it is certainly in this one nation, one market concept, they will be definitely bringing the market integration a definite reality. They'll make the dream come true. So it is Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan. The Jawans are really making us to sleep peaceful in the night, and the farmers are ensuring that the nation is well fed. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. Thank you very much, sir. We are really thankful to the government for taking such an proactive step of collaborating all the players and aggregating them. And definitely, I think, are we moving to minimizing the role of middlemen and definitely increasing the remunerative prices to the farmers. That is important for Indian economy, which is based 70% based on agriculture. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time, and we'll be having a panel discussion, and whatever recommendations that comes up after this discussion, we'll be forwarding it to the office of yours. Thank you very much, sir, for making it today. Thank you. So we now move on to the next part of the webinar. I would now request our expert, Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, to take over and handle the panel discussion. Thank you, sir.
All right. It's such a delight for me to be a part of this ASSOCHAM panel discussion. Swain Saab, thank you very much for enlightening us, explaining to us the rationale for these reforms. I think they're very, very interesting. I'm absolutely sure a lot of you have thought through various dimensions of the issues associated with agri marketing, and then you have come up with these ordinances. I must compliment the government. Lot more needs to be done, but at least this is a great beginning, is a great reform that the nation has witnessed after a very, very long time. And therefore, congratulations. My request is kindly stay back to witness a panel discussion as much as your time permits. I want to also compliment Dr. Sagar Kaushik for his opening remarks, very well made. We have more than 400 participants now. I'm told many of them are students, and therefore this is going to be quite interesting. I'm going to do the context setting as a moderator for this event, and some of the points have already been made. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, yes. I've always said in the last 2 months that agriculture has been our beacon of hope as far as India is concerned. At a time when the nation is facing a medical emergency, social emergency, economic emergency very nearly, and then national lockdown, we are all in a state of forced inactivity. Manufacturing sector is badly hit. Services sector is badly hit. Factories are closed. Jobs are lost. Incomes are lost. Supply chain is disrupted, and there's a very sharp slump in demand. Amidst all this gloomy picture as far as manufacturing and services sectors are concerned, agriculture has turned out to be a fantastic beacon of hope for the economy, because agriculture is so critical. Next slide, please. Agriculture is so critical for our country that of the GDP of about $2.7 trillion, agriculture accounts for 15 to 16%, or well over $400 billion per annum. But its importance lies in the fact that it employs more than 50% of the workforce for this country. And therefore, while in the US agriculture is agribusiness, in India agriculture is livelihood for more than 50% of the workforce. And therefore, agriculture is important. Therefore, the focus of the government on agriculture is very critical and very timely and absolutely welcome. As a nation, we actually enjoy very many natural endowments, be it sunshine or water availability or rivers crisscrossing the country, varied agroclimatic conditions, etc., and long coastline. But we haven't actually leveraged these natural endowments. Maybe we should have. I want to recommend to ASSOCHAM to do a seminar and discuss what natural endowments do we have, how can we leverage them for the nation's prosperity. That's another thought that occurs to me now. What is important also is we know the government is committed to doubling farmers' income. These agri marketing reforms, the 3 reforms that Dr. Swain talked about, and of course Sagarji referred to, are actually post-production reforms, which are the agri marketing reforms. We had green revolution in the 60s, which is a production reform, and now at this point of time, when you have a reasonable amount of surplus in the Indian agriculture sector, we have come up with the most appropriate post-production agri market reforms. The next one. Next slide. Yes, very quickly again, that will take half a minute to do this, to cover this. Yes, 1 lakh crore rupees have been earmarked for as a part of the stimulus package for agriculture infrastructure fund. The states and the center will have to work together in identifying a post-harvest marketing infrastructure. And here I want Nirupama to take note that ASSOCHAM should play a role in identifying where and in what scale post-harvest marketing infrastructure is required. I think that if we are able to research the location and the scale of investment that is required across the country, or even in select states for that matter, that will be a great help to the Government of India and to NABARD for investing in very specific areas, specific locations, specific scale, investments, etc. I think this is something I'm urging all the chambers of commerce, all the trade associations and industry associations to do this exercise and help the government identify projects. The next one, of course, is Essential Commodities Act 1955, which always hung over traders' head as a Damocles sword. It has now been amended to keep rice, wheat, oilseeds, oil, pulses, potatoes, onion, etc., out of the purview of the Essential Commodities Act, which means traders can now build their inventory with a lot more confidence. The farmers will have much improved marketability of the crop, because hitherto traders were a little apprehensive of building large inventory, and therefore now with this exemption, the farmers' marketability of the crop will improve, and traders will be able to build a bigger inventory. The next one is, of course, barrier-free trade, one nation, one market. Private markets have been allowed. E-trading, electronic trading has been recommended, and today we're actually going to be focusing on this barrier-free trade. And the third one, of course, is contract farming, as it was referred to earlier, bringing groups of farmers and sponsors or corporates who could be processors, aggregators, exporters together, so that there'll be disintermediation, and the price volatility that the farmers face can be de-risked for them substantially. The next slide. Next slide. Okay, this is the ordinance we are going to discuss today. The one nation, one market, barrier-free trade. It's called a Farming, Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020. This fosters, this promotes, this encourages barrier-free trade. We used to have interstate and even intrastate trade barriers or restrictions in the movement of cargo. And all these have now been knocked off, and the cargoes, the harvested produce can move from any place to any place without any kind of hindrance. And therefore, this is creating a substantially enhanced marketing freedom for growers in particular, and also for processors who may be located in a particular place. The raw material may be quite far away, produced in a place quite far away, in a different district, in a different state altogether, and there were barriers for bringing. And now, with these restrictions removed, the marketing freedom for growers stands substantially enhanced, and the freedom of sourcing for processors is also substantially enhanced. Private markets have been allowed. Warehouses, factory premises, silos can actually become now private markets, and therefore it is not necessary that farmers will have to go to the APMC market to sell. They also have an option to go to the private market, and these private markets have been asked to conduct electronic trade. Therefore, we are now in a situation after so many years where the APMC marketing yards will have to compete with private markets. There'll be I believe it's going to be a very healthy competition. It's a very necessary competition, and who will win? Will the private markets win, or will APMCs continue to find favor? We don't know. Whoever is going to deliver much better price benefit to the grower is going to win, because growers will support and will favor that marketing outlet. It could be APMC, it could be a private market. Who will the FPOs favor? Obviously, whoever gives them a better price. Next slide. Next slide. What is important is, we must remember at this point of time, there is no regulatory oversight for the private market. And I am expecting over the next 6 months and over the whole of 2021, there could be a few hundred, if not a few thousand, certainly several hundred private markets that will spring up within the country. And there could be potentially issues relating to assaying, which is quality testing, issues relating to payment, and and there could also be disputes relating to quality, etc. And therefore, we need a mechanism to resolve assaying, quality determination, payment disputes to be resolved in a very, very timely manner. Next, one concern that I have is MSP. Will the private markets enforce MSP? We don't know. I suppose they should, they ought to, because after all, minimum support price is a sovereign guarantee given by the government of India to farmers, saying, please grow. If the prices fall below MSP, I am here to buy. The government will have to buy. But will private markets, will MSP be enforced in private market? We don't know. This is something we need to look at. What is also important is, if there are going to be hundreds of private markets, we need to capture data. What transactions are they doing? That every day there'll be transactions of hundreds of private markets across India. We need to capture the data, collate the data, consolidate the data, and disseminate the data. That is where exactly the market will come to know what's happening across the country. And therefore, this is going to be a big challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. Possibly the private markets can work closely with ENAM structure, and all that can be collated under the ENAM umbrella. It is possible. There are a number of people who want to write off APMCs, asking questions: will APMCs survive because of private markets? I am absolutely convinced APMCs are not going to die. APMCs will survive, and they ought to survive. And in fact, I wrote a commentary 3 weeks ago saying APMCs will have to rediscover themselves. They need to redefine themselves. And this is going to happen. I have no doubt at all. Once they have a challenge in terms of private market, APMCs will start improving. Most APMCs are highly politicized in their respective states. So there is a process of depoliticizing them is what is important. For here is an opportunity for APMCs to revitalize. There is also another thought. Will some APMCs be privatized? Why not? I think some APMCs can be privatized. They have a lot of domain experience and knowledge. They have infrastructure. They have storage space, and it's a meeting place for a lot of people, and therefore it could even be privatized. I think the government, state government, because it falls under the domain of the state government, respective state governments will have to think even about unproductive or inefficient APMCs, privatize and monetize it. Okay, next one, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Anoop.
Okay, yeah. Having said this, I want to welcome all these reforms, the 3 big reforms, and that big 1 lakh crore fund for post-harvest marketing infrastructure. Plus, there is another 60,000 crore additional for fisheries and for micro food organizations, etc. It's totally 1,60,000 crores, really speaking. The outlook, when we look at next 6 months, the whole of 2021, it is important that for the success of these reforms, implementation is the key. And therefore, while the government has now announced these reforms, the center and the states will have to work together. To make sure that these reforms meet with success. It is extremely important. We have seen in the past, in the last 20 years, some of these reforms were initiated but were not followed up vigorously. But I'm hoping, I have every hope that this reform is here for good and will be implemented with full vigor. While market reforms are certainly a necessary condition for making farming competitive, they are not enough. By themselves, they're not going to make our farming competitive. There are also other sufficient conditions which will have to be fulfilled. But then what those sufficient conditions are is going to involve a big lecture. Maybe there is another seminar topic for Nirupama. But we need to, for making farming competitive, we need to address structural problems. The structural problems are so many. I don't think I should go into all that. But for long-term sustainability of Indian agriculture and resurgence in Indian agriculture, we need to address the structural issues, and where, in my opinion, stakeholder consultation becomes extremely important. And I'm sure with the kind of domain expertise that ASSOCHAM has within the body, the chamber, one of the stakeholders should certainly be various chambers of commerce, including ASSOCHAM. Next, I think I'm probably next. I've come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. This is how I believe I should set the context for further discussion. And I want to just say, stay safe, stay blessed. I'll now take this forward. We have, I think you can withdraw. You can now withdraw the slide. Great, wonderful. I'm now going to once again have the pleasure of welcoming all the panelists. And while they're all very well known in their respective fields, for me it's a pleasure to talk about them and mention them, particularly for the benefit of a large number of youngsters who are actually watching this program. I am privileged to have an elite panel. Okay, this is an absolutely elite panel that I have, starting with, of course, with Mr. Sagar Kaushik, who is the president of UPL. He looks after corporate affairs and industry affairs. More than 35 years of international experience, Indian experience in the agri input industry, and in his industry, he's certainly among the who's who, and therefore and a tremendous domain expertise. Dr. M. Krishna, we have known for a long time. He's actually a veteran. He's a veteran in India's food processing industry. Today, he represents GD Foods as a director on the board of GD Foods, which is it's a food processing company. And he's a doyen of the Indian food processing sector, having worked both within the country and outside, including for the US Soybean Export Council. He carries huge amount of domain knowledge. I'll now then come to Sarat Molokutla, and we have known each other for some years from his NCDEX days. He's now the Chief Business Officer of Agri Bazaar. Agri Bazaar is a startup. It's into electronic trading. It has an electronic platform, and he has more than 20 years of experience both within the country and outside. What do I tell about my friend Somnath Chatterjee? Is currently the head procurement and logistics of ITC Foods Division. Huge exposure to a very large number of agricultural raw material for his company. More than 20 years in the food industry in key positions. Is a very popular person in various conferences and seminars. Is a regular speaker and possibly even on television shows. And of course, Aline Mukherjee is the Executive Vice President of NCDEX. He's also the COO of NICR, which is NCDEX Institute of Commodity Research. And as you know, NCDEX is a leading exchange in this country for agri-commodity derivatives. Again, Aline has over 25 years of Indian and international experience in agribusiness, procurement, exports, etc. Therefore, I think it's an absolutely elite panel. And I welcome each one of you. Thank you very much for participating. I'm now going to first go to Mr. Sagar again. If you would want to, basically, I didn't talk about your company, which is UPL, is one of the largest in the agrochemicals business, and they have international operations. So how are these? How significant are the agri marketing reforms for your company and for your industry? And do you have any concerns relating to this?
Yeah, Chandrasekharji, thank you very much. And I would like to say that the response to these reforms in the 4 different categories. And each of the category, we find that it is definitely having a much more positive influence on our business, our activities, but we also have to, uh, let's say, rebalance things, reorganize things in terms of the resources, in terms of the planning, and I'd like to give some examples. For example, as far as farmers are concerned, obviously, I don't want to be repetitive even for the audience, that they have more choices, they have more knowledge, and this knowledge will get more exponential when the digital part comes and the new knowledge comes to the farmers. I think the farmers will get much more enabled to take the decisions in terms of what to grow and how much they can produce and in which location they can sell and what price, discovery of the price is also participated. They will not be able to fix the price in all cases, but at least they will be able to discover the price, and so they have much more information in their hand. Now, the uh, the impact also, it's not only the big farmers or the medium farmers, but I think the major advantage will go to small holding farmers. That general perception that, small holding farmers, they cannot afford to buy assets, they can't have a tractor, and all those you know sort of a stigmas that small holding farmer is a liability. But I think these policies are going to transform these liabilities into really beautiful assets. And that is where the role comes of a company like ours, that we can join in actually in the process of aggregating these farmers, and for a purpose which is different than one of the artiyas buying their product. So I think there is a huge transformation which takes place. And the second thing is that as a company or as a corporate of, like UPL and other companies, I think I am looking at that how effectively, efficiently, cost efficiently I am able to work with the small holding farmers and especially with the FPOs. So, and I would like to review that how I could support the development phase of the FPOs, because FPOs is a recent discovery in our country to aggregate the farmers. And I know actually from the very people, very much inside, that there are 6,000 FPOs, and there is a general perception that, they are not adequately resourced, they have some issues, this issue, or in terms of professional knowledge, etc. But it is also true that 1,000 FPOs are working extremely well, and in terms of the purpose they have been created, they are able to deliver that. So I think that as an industry, I see that we need to become much more responsible to the farmers, that they understand this change, and we help them to strategize and work with them, that they are more successful than before. So I would take the responsibility more on the industry side to make sure that the implementation path for the farmers, smallholding farmers and FPOs is much more going to support them, that they are able to manage their activities better. Now, the second part comes with regard to the investors. Now, in the investors, we should not assume that that there is now an exporter or there is somebody, an off-taker, and he's buying the product directly from the farmer. I think this is not just the 2 points which are meeting, but there will be a number of other players who would become part of it. And these could be the processors, these could be the secondary level of processors, primary processors, who have to build up the facilities closest to the farm production. And so I think the and it's not only the company like UPL, but there are other technologies which could be more service driven. So the service part we never really mention as far as agriculture is concerned, because we think that the farmer will be able to do his own service. I think in the long term, it is actually a waste, that the farmer, he could earn money somewhere else, and he has to spend so much of time, and this is also not sustainable. And we are saying that, well, the farmers migration, labor migration and all takes place. I think this is one area I consider that as far as investors are concerned, we have the opportunity to become participants in the procurement, in the processing, secondary processing, marketing, branding, and broadly speaking, monetization of the farm produce for domestic as well as export. So, and that is where I think our company and the industry also can become the partner. Third thing is the investors. I think as in our investors to our company, they will also see the opportunity that it is beyond the scope of just selling agrochemicals or just selling seeds. But when they see that these value chains will be created and these value chains need to be driven, and these value chains actually are having the dual systemicity. They don't just physically move from aggregation of the farmers to the consumer. I think this value chain will also flow backward. It will also come from consumer, but lot of knowledge, expectations, specifications is going to come from the consumers, which will be passed on to the farmers somehow, and farmers have to then really deliver the specification which the consumer needs. So I think this whole new ecosystem is to be delivered, and this system will become much more perfect than today. And because today also all the activities are taking place, all the value chain activities, they do take place, but they are actually scattered and they are not talking to each other. And when you are able to bring them, so I would say that from the farmers, consumer, investor, I think the standpoint of view, the uh, the industry will also benefit out of it because the whole value will go up. And value in this sense, I think Mr. Chandrasekhar mentioned that GDP of India is $400 billion. Now, when you bring the value chain related value creation, I will not be surprised that in 3 years' time, it could move 50% up. Yeah, and because that's the value creation which has to happen today. The value creation, or you can say the processing, which value creation comes from the processing, primary processing, secondary processing. In India, it is less than 10% in agriculture. And if you go to Europe, it is 56%. Go to US, it is minimum, I don't know exactly, but it is somewhere around 75, 76%. So even if we are able to bring 30% value creation, I think we are talking about a very different agriculture GDP than 400 billion. And if you are able to create the value, you have the opportunity also to take your share of the value increase. And of course, this needs to be largely shared to the farmers, because the farmers need to see this as an agribusiness. So I would say that there is a lot of work to be done, and there is no competition that who gets the value first. But I think a very complementary value chain need to be created. And another important thing which I want to mention, that there are some broader picture which are linked to agriculture, like water issue, nutrition issues, yeah, soil issues. I think whatever we do, at least to begin with, back of our mind, we could see that I want to create a value chain of rice, but I need to make sure that the water issue is also addressed. I want to do something on sugarcane. I need to make sure that I understand that the soil issue is also addressed. And the farmers have a hell of a lot of risk. They take the maximum risk across the sectors. So therefore, if I am doing something in the value chain, and this message is more for the young people who are listening today, that they should come out with certain products, that how could they don't need to be the agriculture graduate to do that. I think an agriculture graduate like me, we have our own baggages. But if the people are coming from IITs and the young students, they can create several products. So I think the opportunity for the industry is much larger than just the farmers alone. So I think this process has to be very, very meticulously thought about it for the implementation. And hopefully this time it is going to work as far as our agriculture industry is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Sagarji. It's an absolutely exciting outlook that you have given. I think these reforms taken together, and as I said, if when implemented effectively, is surely going to be a game changer for Indian agriculture, Indian economy, in fact. Great. I'm sure the messaging and the communication to the attendees is very clear. I'll now move to Dr. Krishna. As I said, the veteran of the Indian food processing sector, food processing industry. Dr. Krishna, what do these reforms, how significant are these reforms, and what do they mean for you and for your company and for India's food processing sector? Yeah, I think that's a big question I want to ask each one. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. I wish to thank ASSOCHAM, Sagar Kaushik-ji and Nirupama-ji, Chandrasekhar-ji for the opportunity to be here on the panel and discuss the issues of one nation, one agricultural market. As Chandrasekhar-ji has pointed out in his presentation, one of the important offshoots of this one nation, one agricultural market could lead to contract farming model with the farmers and the industry operating together. I wish to inform that our company has successfully implemented the contract farming process for procuring tomatoes from different states in India, particularly Punjab and Haryana. We sign a contract with the farmers for taking their whole crop during the season and an assured price, and the farmer is not unduly worried during the period of glut because he is assured of a remunerative price all through the season for his produce. It has been working wonderfully well, and we are planning to extend this to other vegetables like carrots and green chilies and other vegetables and fruits that we process in our concentration unit. While the unit is located in the state of Punjab, we also procure from the farmers in Haryana. This is the model of opening up one market, one nation. We have implemented this year, and it is very, very successful. The only problem that we face is in Punjab, while we don't pay any taxes for the market, APMC tax. In Haryana, when we get it from Haryana, we have to pay 4% money tax still. I think when the reform becomes operationalized properly by the state government and central government coordinated, these impediments like multi-point taxations, etc., will be resolved. We actually are planning to extend it to a number of other raw materials that we procure through farmers process organizations or primary processing centers that we intend to encourage farmers to set up with the help of agencies, funding agencies like NABARD and other agencies, so that primary processing is carried out on the farm by the farmer, and the intermediate product gets transported to the mother unit for processing. This is something like the hub and spoke concept that Chandrasekhar ji mentioned. Is very much we are trying to implement it from next season, and we hope that it will further facilitate a very smooth supply chain from the farmer to the factory, and also enable the farmer to add value to his produce at the farm and get more remuneration through his produce. This is one of the routes that we contemplate will be a successful route for towards doubling the farmer's income. There are other low-cost and small-scale technologies for processing, which can be installed or which can be set up at the farm gates, so that the farmer does not sell his produce in distress during the period of glut. If we see the situation in the period of glut in the state of Andhra Pradesh, if you travel from Chittoor to Bangalore during the tomato season, you will find mounds of tomatoes thrown on the road by the farmers because they say they cannot even transport to the market because they don't get even that much realization. So they just dump. To prevent such things and to help the farmer get a remunerative price and add value to his produce, I feel technologies, low-cost technologies, which can be ideal at the farm gate, operated by the farmer, like solar dehydration process. If we have solar dehydrators at different points in the village along the farms, these operate with zero energy cost, with green energy, and the input costs are minimum. The farmer and his associates can easily contribute to the labor and transform that perishable commodity during the glut period into a stable, shelf-stable product, which can get him a much higher revenue and which can have a very long shelf life. A small example that I can give is a tomato. Tomato which sells during the period of glut at 1 rupee a kilo. If it sells, otherwise it is thrown out. 20 rupees worth of tomatoes can then processed into tomato powder. 1 kilo of tomato powder fetches in 350 rupees in the market. So the enormous value addition that is possible by utilizing low cost and small capacity food processing equipments. I think these type of concepts should be introduced in the farmer producer organizations so that they are accessible to the farmers and farmers can easily convert their perishable produce into a high value added finished product. There are also other low cost technologies to extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables without recourse to refrigeration. The institutions like the Indian Agricultural Research Institute or the PUSA Institute in Delhi, they developed the technology, zero energy cool chamber technology.
Yes, correct.
It does not require power. It is built on the farm with the materials available at the farm. And the farmer can store his produce for periods of 1 week to 2 weeks, depending on the type of vegetable or fruit, and tide over the periods of glut, and market it at his convenience at the price that he can demand in the market. This zero energy cool chamber it operates on evaporative cooling technology. It's not a big rocket science. It's very simple evaporative cooling process, and the extension of shelf life in perishable products like vegetables, tomatoes, green leafy vegetables is more than 2 to 3 weeks under those conditions of storage because it maintains the low temperature as well as the humidity required for properly maintaining these vegetables without any loss of weight, respiratory or transpiratory losses. So there are various technologies which are suitable for farm gate application, which can be encouraged through the farm producer organizations. And these can really help the farmers to get much higher revenues, which ultimately lead to not only doubling but tripling the farmer's income. Well, these are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share. We have a lot of plans to expand our supply chain.
There'll be some follow-up.
Directly the farmers. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
There'll be some follow-up questions. Thank you very much. I think there is a strong case for withdrawal of mandi tax, in my opinion. In fact, in one of our recommendations through the IMC chamber in Bombay, we did recommend to the government that mandi tax should be withdrawn as part of the package to encourage agriculture. And low-cost technology that you're talking about is extremely important, even in the context of one nation, one market, barrier-free trade, etc. I think if every district in the country, and there are 620 or 630 districts, every district must have at least 1, 2, or 3 food processing units. I'm not sure if there are any districts in India without a food processing unit. I haven't done that exercise, but I think there's a great opportunity to set up and do primary, secondary, and tertiary processing. Dr. Saab, I remember the school chamber is something I first heard more than 20 years ago.
Yes.
In the context of onion, in Maharashtra, price fluctuation, price collapse in onion. But I think we haven't made much headway. We need a huge amount of political will to invest in these low-cost technologies. I completely agree with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
From GD Foods, I'm going to another major food producing corporate, which is ITC Foods Division. Shom, what is the significance of these reforms for your company? How do you see them? Do you have any concerns about these reforms? There's one nation, one market. I mean, we need to stick to this one nation, one market, barrier-free trade. How do you perceive this reform?
Good evening, everybody. At the outset, I'd like to thank ASSOCHAM for inviting me here. And as always, pranam and naman to my guru, Mr. Chandrasekhar. He's guided and mentored me through the commodities space for many years now. So, sir, at the outset, I think, one of the pitfalls of attending seminars with you is that you probably hear me repeating myself. But then,
no, don't worry. I will not tell anybody.
At the cost of repetition, I would like to quote Lenin over here that, in the agri space, what Lenin's quote is that there are decades when nothing happens. And then there are weeks when decades happen. And that is exactly what has happened in the agri space in India. We are living through very interesting times right now. You may call these times VUCA, volatility, black swan, whatever you want, but we must make of it what it's a very good opportunity. So I think there are enough eminent panelists over here who will talk about the policy parts. What I would like to share with this large gathering here, and I understand several of them are youngsters and students and young entrepreneurs. I'd like to, with your permission, share the ITC way. Not talk about policy, which is known, people can talk about it, read it. I will talk about what we have been doing in terms of one nation in the agricultural space. And it'll be more in the form of a story to make it interesting. Otherwise, at about 4:30 in the evening, it can get very boring. So as probably the second largest buyer of agri produce in India after the Food Corporation of India, they are the largest, of course. ITC is today the second largest at 1.8 million tons of wheat, because we sell about 1.6 million tons of packaged data. So, plus we have our own businesses of Sunfeast biscuits and noodles, Yippee noodles, which also take maida. So that's a large connect we have with the wheat farmer. And so I wanted to share with my young friends here today, what do you think makes Ashirvad Atta so special? And what has really been the secret to success? Atta, a lot of people have tried. There have been international brands, without naming them, there are international brands making atta which are still there in the country today. But what makes Ashirvad so successful? And that really, sir, is to do with the farmer connect. Is to understand that there is a particular taste paradigm that our consumers want, and to collect the different varieties, specialty varieties of wheat from different parts of the country, bring it together in a special blend, and be able to supply that to our consumers consistently, month after month, the same taste. And this is possible because of our e-Chopal, because of our massive connect with the farmers. Otherwise, what will happen, sir, is that all the wheat, once it goes into the mandi, it tends to get mixed up. Particularly when it goes into the FCI's godowns, then there is absolutely no traceability, which is 173, which is Raj, which is Sharbati. Of course, Sharbati is a very special and expensive variety that the farmers are very careful about. But every other quality gets mixed. But in our case, we are able to capture the wheat directly either from the farmer's doorstep or at our e-chopal. And we are able to segregate it and keep it and blend it. So that really is the success. And this is a model on paper sounds very easy. Therefore, I'm telling everyone the secret to Ashirvad Data's success. But you have to be able to replicate it. And we are hoping that more and more companies in India will be able to do this direct connect, replicate it. Having said that, sir, all this while, although we were buying directly from the farmers, the mandi cess was there to haunt us. And it is not only about paying a tax or a cess. That's not the point. It's not about money. It's about the various other formalities that one had to go through. The record keeping, the book, I mean, the kind of reams and reams of paper. Every fortnight you have to give returns. So all of that has been done away with a frail soup of the pen, and that's, I think, great. So I believe that, one nation, one agricultural market is something which really is the next big thing in India. I mean, I've been hearing this, that food processing and agriculture is the sunrise industry. I mean, this is my 28th year in the industry. I've been hearing it for all those 28 years. But finally, I think the sun is going to dawn on us, because right now, as we speak, I think the only bright green shoot in our GDP on the economy is agriculture. And this is the one which is going forward. People have to eat. I mean, that is not going to go out of style. Another couple of very good examples which I would like to share with my young friends here is, so we are basically earlier a cigarette company, as most people knew. So we had this 112-year-old cigarette factory in a remote district of Bihar called Munger, right? It's a very old cigarette factory. However, we decided to do something about our people around Munger, the farmers. So we started a CSR activity about 6-7 years back, where we taught them dairy farming. So that long and short of it is, today that program has been so successful that so much milk is coming that initially we were buying that milk and selling it to the Sudha Bihar cooperative at a subsidy just to help the farmers out. But then now there is so much that even Sudha got flooded. So we had to set up our own processing plant. And now we've actually, on the back of it, made that into a very profitable dairy business. So we have Ashirvad Swasti milk, paneer, ghee, etc., which is being sold in the market of the East. Now, when this worked very well, we started saying to ourselves that we have a large Ashirvad Atta sale happening in the east of India, but most of the good quality wheat comes only from MP or parts of Punjab or UP. Why can't we look at growing it closer to home? So we went back with the same set of farmers, and now they are growing some specialty wheat varieties for us extremely successfully in the same area in Bihar. The third example, again, I'll stick to Munger here, would be that when we launched our juices business, Be Natural juices that we have, and true to the brand name, our juices are not made from concentrates. They are not made from any imported fruit concentrate from anywhere else in the world. All our fruit juices are made from 100% desi, freshly squeezed fruits. So we went back to these farmers, and Bihar, sir, is an excellent area for growing lychee, if you would know. And now these guys are doing lychee for us. So our lychee juice comes from. So I'm saying, from the same set or subset of farmers, we are being able to maybe double or triple their income. And another couple of quick examples for the paucity of time. Again, as I said, we were primarily a tobacco company. So a lot of our tobacco was grown in the Guntur area of Andhra Pradesh, still is, a lot of contract farming, etc. But then we were very concerned about how are we going to keep these farmers dedicated to tobacco. And to do that, we had to give them other sources of income. So then we came up with the idea of encouraging chili over there. So we actually work very closely with the farmers in that district for chili. And then excellent crop. And then these guys started coming back to us and saying, okay, so now we've grown it. What do we do with it? And so I think very few people in this forum may know a piece of statistics I'd like to share, that anywhere in the world today, anywhere in the world, I repeat, if anyone's opening a sachet of chili flakes, okay, 2 out of 5 sachets would contain chili flakes which are made in ITC state-of-the-art processing unit in Guntur.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so because that happened because we tried to export the chili. We export a lot of tobacco. We wanted to do the chili, but then what happened? Microbial contamination, all kinds of issues. The importing countries rejected it.
Yeah.
So we had to set up a state-of-the-art facility there. We did that. So all I'm trying to say is that, sir, with each of these things, we can actually look at doubling, tripling the farmer income and actually, walk the talk, so to speak. Policy is one, and I'm very happy policy is coming our way. But ITC had already started, being the change that it wanted to see. So with that, back to you, sir, and I'll be happy to take questions later. There are other panels to go.
Sure, certainly. Thank you, Sean, for this very exciting progress that ITC has made, particularly because of the Farmer Connect. All this is simply because of the Farmer Connect. And this one nation, one market is obviously going to further boost the prospects. Wonderful. I am now, because this one nation, one market ordinance, it talks about private markets, talks about electronic trading. Let me invite Sarath Mulukutla to talk about how significant are these reforms in general, but this particular reform of one nation, one market in particular for your firm Agri Bazaar, which is a startup, and how do you propose to address issues relating to quality, assaying, payments, etc. But first, how important is this particular ordinance and reform for your company?
Sure. Thank you, GC sir, and I compliment ASSOCHAM for organizing this very timely webinar on the reforms that were announced last month. I actually also want to compliment the government of India for using the COVID crisis as an opportunity to announce reforms. I mean, you can't use a period of crisis better than this. And I think this is a new era that has dawned on Indian agriculture. And I will come to how the reforms influence the business that we do, but I want to cover a few other points before I reach there. So quickly about the ordinances, we already know that the ordinance on farmer trade and commerce gives the farmer the alternative to sell his produce outside the APMC Mandi system and creates a true one nation, one market for agri-produce. And I quickly want to just mention a bit about the second ordinance, which has amended the Essential Commodities Act, which will instill confidence in the private sector for building large and modern storage facilities. It will also propel investments in building more efficient food supply lines. However, I feel the government was a bit too prescriptive about stocking limits. There is a clause in the ordinance about stocking limits being imposed in case of an extraordinary price rise. Not only that, they have also defined what extraordinary price rise means as a 100% increase in the price of perishables and a 50% increase for non-perishables over a 12-month period. They could have avoided putting this into the ordinance and left it to the rules where they might be easier to change. Even better, they should have not talked about imposing stocking limits and only impose them in the case of natural calamity, famines, wars, etc. But all in all, these are transformational changes that will bring prosperity to our farmers and have also created opportunities for private enterprises. And I want to just continue on that theme as to what are the opportunities here. So the government allocated about 1 lakh crores of money to strengthen the farm gate infrastructure. Now, building this infrastructure will actually go a long way in making a farmer's dream of selling from the farm gate a reality. The farm gate infrastructure, and I want to just elaborate on what we mean by this farm gate infrastructure. It could mean, or it could include dry warehouses, cold storages, silos, weighbridges, labs for testing quality, machines for cleaning, grading, and sorting, and primary procurement centers. And these facilities could be built in such a manner that a cluster of villages within a defined radius is able to access them and bring their produce for collection, aggregation, weighment, and so on, storage, packing, and sale. And creating such an infrastructure is not a task that can be done only by the government or only by the private. This requires a massive public-private partnership. So the government, I think, in consultation with local panchayats and farmer collectives, could, demarcate a piece of land and provide funds for constructing this infrastructure at the farm gate. And it's very important for the government to involve some private sector implementation partners for the construction of this infrastructure and its subsequent running and maintenance. So it has to be an ongoing collaborative project which involves entities with distinct roles. The government allocating land and funding the construction of this infrastructure, a local body of that cluster of villages which takes ownership and oversight of this infrastructure, and an implementation partner who will actually have the infrastructure constructed, lease it from the local body to provide services to farmers, and generate a monthly income for the owner of the infrastructure, because that infrastructure has to be run, it has to be maintained. A monthly income is very necessary. We have to use this infrastructure smartly. It could also be used as a tool to encourage farmers to switch from one crop to another. One could build infrastructure that is amenable to a particular crop, thereby encouraging farmers to switch crops. This infrastructure, along with the presence of electronic markets, will be a powerful combination for farm gate sales to prosper. In fact, availability of electronic markets should be considered as part of the necessary infrastructure at a farm gate. I mean, after all, what's the use if this infrastructure cannot help the farmer to get a good price? Yeah. So the electronic markets going forward will play a very critical role in giving the farmer an actual alternative to the APMC Mandi system. But I want to briefly touch upon one of the points, GC sir, that possibly you had raised about the APMCs and their relevance, is that at the moment, there are few locations outside the APMC Mandi that have all the infrastructure required for selling agri produce. Until proper infrastructure is available to enable agri marketing outside the APMC, the mandis will continue to be relevant. In fact, if the mandis reduce the mandi tax and the commissions charged by the RTIs, I think they will remain competitive for a very long time. So the creation of this farm gate infrastructure is actually very critical to actually give the farmers a real choice as far as agri marketing is concerned. Now, at Agri Bazaar, we have started electronic mandis, and we can see the interest it's generating amongst farmers and the buyers. Farmers are very happy to come to our mandis, which we are at the moment hosting at warehouses, because those warehouses have some of the infrastructure that I just spoke about. So when a farmer comes to our e-mandi, his produce is scientifically assayed. He gets a proper quality report, which is then displayed on our platform where buyers from across the country can connect and electronically bid. So the moment you have no restriction for buyers who can join, you're increasing the competition, and therefore the efficiency, quality and transparency of price discovery itself has gone up. That itself is a major boost to the farmer. Second, because of disintermediation, the farmer definitely gets a better price than he might have got at the usual conventional places where you sell. So this is how I think the electronic markets have to move. However, without critical farm gate infrastructure, their spread will be limited. Yeah. But I must acknowledge the role of ENAM here. I think they're now in about 1,000 markets, and I think they've shown the way. as to how electronic markets can increase in the market, how they can bring prosperity or at least better prices to the farmer. However, I feel that the role of ENAM itself might change. As you yourself said, that there might be a large number of electronic markets that might come into play going forward. ENAM, this sort of organization that is, it could actually move to a different level. It could actually become a platform of platforms, where it is, if not a de jure, but a de facto regulator of these electronic platforms, and ensure that these private electronic platforms adhere to basic set of practices. There is integrity in the way they provide services to the farmers and so on. So I very strongly feel that ENAM, while they did show us the path in the first phase, I think in the second phase, if you will, they have a very different role to perform. So that's broadly what I have to say, is that this is a great set of reforms. And without any exaggeration, I would like to say that, I didn't expect such a set of reforms even during my lifetime. So it's a phenomenal set of reforms. And I think it will slowly take time for them to actually have their impact. But nevertheless, a great opportunity by the government to come out with these reforms during the COVID crisis. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharad, for this, for highlighting this. There's one quick question that occurred to me. The ordinance says the private markets shall not charge any fee. How would the private markets survive if they are not going to charge fee?
Sorry, sir, I would differ with you. I've read the ordinance. I don't think they are prescriptive. They have not suggested anything about the fee. So,
no, this is exactly what I wanted. The ordinance says that the private market shall not collect any fees from the farmers. Most people seem to miss out on the word farmer. You can't charge the farmer. But if I'm a processor coming and buying from a private market, then you can charge. And therefore, that's the clarity I actually wanted. Thank you very much. I think this is wonderful. But we'll come back. There'll be follow-up. There'll be follow-up questions. I'm now going to a friend, Aline from NCDEX and NICR. Aline, please share your thoughts. How significant are these agri-market reforms for an agri-exchange such as yours, India's leading agri-exchange? And I'll probably have a follow-up questions once you give your initial thoughts. Aline.
At the onset, I think let me thank ASSOCHAM for having me on board as a part of such a esteemed panelist. And the difficulty here is that, Mr. Kaushik and Chandrasekhar and Dr. Krishna has outlined, along with Bharat and Som, exactly what I was going to say. So now, basically, my task is a little bit difficult in terms of recrafting the same thought process with different words. So I'll try my best on that. Yeah. So I will connect it with the exchange, but with some basic process in the Indian agri system. I'm working in agriculture for almost 25, 26 years. This really has been a fantastic time to be in. Because initially when I joined agriculture in Pamnagar, the harbinger of Green Revolution, everybody thought, what exactly is this? I mean, today is definitely a different ball game altogether. And I think along with the certain changes in the ecosystem, what we have seen in terms of the startup ecosystem, and now with this kind of changes, there are definitely humongous amount of opportunity, not only with the existing entrepreneurs or the business houses, as I think pointed out by Mr. Kaushik and Dr. Krishna and so, but also the new age entrepreneurs to bring in that cutting edge technology. So, bringing that, what we see, is some people say that it is not organized, but it is organized. move from production center to our table in a very, very organized manner. But the challenge is that it is not exactly a very formal system. So the chain is, and along with that, the chain is quite long and not equitably distributed. So that means the trade which happens in the market and the last mile as a consumer, the trade is not equitably distributed. So if we talk about that doubling farmers' income, and somebody talked about maybe even tripling farmers' income to various models. So we need to see that how this chain can be more equitably distributed. And there comes the impact of these three ordinances into place. Now, if we take these ordinances as a whole, because one nation, one agricultural market, all these three ordinances, along with the recently announced FPO guidelines, if you look at it in comprehensive, this is what it is trying to do. So that means reduction of that spread between the farm gate to the not exactly, not necessarily reduction, but at least equitable distribution from the farm gate costing to the last consumer, what we pay. Now, if you look at from that angle, the essential act and Dr. Swan has talked about is that there would be investment moving towards that direction. So definitely, we also hope so, and we expect also that from an exchange standpoint, these and we had been as an exchange ecosystem, we had been had some challenges earlier under this act and during 2009 and 10 sugar crisis. And we definitely feel that it's a fantastic move, and investment definitely move towards that direction. And what it will also do is that at the back of this 1 lakh crore announced, this investment will definitely flow at the nearer to the production end. It has to move. And as an exchange, what we always call about or always talk about as a market price on liquidity. So if we can create liquidity or liquid market near to the farm gate, that is where the buyers will get attracted. And for that, I think the farmer producer companies, as indicated by even Dr. Krishna, they are trying to get from SPOs, would play a tremendous amount of role. Of course, there are challenges which I think government is again trying to sort. That's a separate discussion altogether. So the second part is that once these things can happen where the farm gate level aggregation takes place easily without challenges of Essential Commodities Act, without reasonable scientific storage facilities and primary processing facility available. So automatically there would be need to manage their prices. So the question is that where does how do they do that? So if let's say the trade moves more towards the farm gate, as Sharaf was also mentioning, then definitely there would be need of a better price discovery system. So how do you create that, or how do you access that better price discovery mechanism? And that is where I think exchanges will play fantastic role and still playing a very big role in ensuring that there is a more transparent and a fair price discovery, which can be then used as a benchmark to have a better transactional rate at a farm gate. So if we look at from that angle, then automatically, if there is a better price discovery, then automatically there is a better market, and there is subsequently a probable price risk management. The other part, what it will entail, along with the other two ordinances of contract farming and partly, and of course, outside the trade area. Definitely, what will happen is that the market will try to move towards where the quality material is available. And I think Mr. Chatterjee has mentioned that how IPC is trying to do that. And what we see going forward is that more and more uh, standardization of products, better storage facilities, such that you can create more niche and attract buyers nearer to the market. Because once you bring into the mandi, between ADC, it's very difficult to determine arbitrage opportunity happens by the traders that the farmers get to sell. So I think that these three things will happen. So there would be more investment in the storage and the primary infrastructure because of the EP Act. The farmers, the HPOs will definitely get more boost and store along with the private traders. But of course, because of the trade ordinance, they also have to compete with the normal traders now. I mean, whoever has got money can buy the PAN card. So that will create more competition for farmer producer companies as well. So there is a challenge in that direction which needs to be solved. And definitely there would be the improvement in the quality nearer to the farm gate instead of coming to the mandi operation. And that will start creating liquidity at the farm gate level. And if it creates liquidity at the farm gate level, the spread of what the farmers can get would improve. And that is what we hope for, and that is where I think the exchange role in terms of price benchmarking and price risk management comes into the play. The other aspect which I'm going to touch base a little bit is the option market. Because, you know, options in the commodity futures the segment is a very significant aspect where there is price risk. Without getting into the mark-to-market of futures, one can actually lock in a price and no problem of no fear of the upward losing out on the upward movement, but locking in a downward movement of the price. And I think it seems to me is that now with these kind of regulations in place, more and more private companies should be able to use these tools to lock in their price along with the farmer producer company. Of course, there are other aspects which need to be looked into in terms of the cost of the premium and how do we get that. But I think now the tools are there. What we now have to inculcate, and the tools are there. The government has given enough impetus to these ordinances. Now the habit of price risk management and locking in your price by the farmers and the corporates needs to set it. So I think that is where I will leave it at this point in time. We can take some questions.
Thank you, Aline. I think you have, thank you. You have, contrary to your first statement, you have very well differentiated yourself in terms of what you have spoken from others. Okay. There is actually one round of questions, then we have a Q&A for the attendees, but I'm going to change the sequence. I'm going to invite Dr. Rajveer Rathi to make concluding remarks, because I believe he needs to leave at 5 o'clock. But I have coming from a very large company, Bayer, and of course closely associated with ASSOCHAM, is a co-chair of the Agri Business Committee of ASSOCHAM. I'm sure we will hear from him some words of wisdom. Rathi.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chandrasekharji, and good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy and delighted to join this call, which is very important and timely to have a discussion among the eminent industry stalwarts on one nation, one agri market today. Firstly, I would like to express my sincere appreciation for Government of India for announcing these landmark reforms in agriculture and allied sectors. I'm sure this decision will empower the farmers, the markets, and definitely contribute to enhance their livelihoods, which has been talked for so many years. And I think this will be a good decision in the right direction. With the government's decision to announce, which has been said earlier, around 1 lakh crore towards aggregators, farmer producers, organizations, agriculture startups, for strengthening farm gate infrastructure, we feel these measures will definitely act as a catalyst for India's mission to achieve doubling the farmer income by 2022, and also boost the agriculture exports in much more sustainable manner through these policy interventions. The agriculture and food processing sector will definitely witness the rise in private investment, which has been talked for quite a lot of lot of time and for last several years, and definitely these reforms will push fast forward. Putting together these measures, which are targeted at making farming and agriculture operations more competitive and creating space for private players to have access to integrated market, is also a commendable effort. Also, more buyers would vouch for better price realization for the farmer, with a wider scope of getting higher returns, not only in India but globally. Like we heard, from the ITC very well. It will also attract, at the same time, foreign direct investment into agriculture sector, with investment in cold storage, modernization, and other infrastructure, which is essentially needed to strengthen the entire value chain. I believe these are really positive, steps which were long overdue. And on other hand, if you look at risk mitigation through predictable price, will definitely empower farmers, definitely strengthen agri-processing linkages, which will enable demand-driven agriculture. At the same time, investment in food processing sector will also significantly will be boosted, considering these reforms which has come in a timely manner. And I heard that one of the panelists said that it's an opportunity during the COVID crisis. Though the Indian food processing sector faces gaps in processable variety of raw materials which is grown in our nation, so here the agriculture universities and extension services can play a vital role, creating awareness for farmers, FPOs about such high return varieties of agriculture commodities. The other point I thought I'll just make into the notice, which will be helpful, that the amendments in the Essential Commodities Act 1955 had outlived its utility, and by bringing a change, the government has ensured that investment in the agri value chain will get a boost. At the same time, if you look at what the world is watching, there are a lot of nations which are also seeking India as the best alternative importer for processed food, marine meat, fruits and vegetables, tea, rice, and other cereals, as they are, refraining to import edible products from China. But we have seen it, and then we have seen an example of chili export with the value addition, with the colleague from ITC had just mentioned. It is also necessary to identify these opportunities and start doing groundwork, like legalizing the contract farming, which has been provisioned in these new ordinances. The other important thing, if you look at the ordinance on the farmers empowerment and protection agreement on price assurance and farm services ordinance 2020, it provides for a national framework for agreements with the farmer by any third party. This operationality of the ordinance would need closer study by private sector, as it enables a legal framework for contract farming, which could be a game changer if properly implemented. I hope and I'm pretty confident that today's discussion will be helpful in encouraging the agriculture stakeholder to have a better understanding and move towards making India as a vibrant agriculture and food market, and just to have regained the leadership at a global level. Lastly, but very important, on behalf of ASSOCHAM, we are also thankful to Agri Bazaar, Top Foods, and NCDX for sponsoring this session. So with this, I would like to conclude the concluding remarks and convey a big thanks to everyone. Have a nice weekend ahead, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rathi, for these concluding remarks. I want to check with Nirupama. Can we continue for another 10 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir. We can continue. We need to have at least 5 questions.
Exactly. While I have some questions for each of the panelists, while I do this, will you check the chat? I'm not able to open the chat from here, for I don't know what the questions, which questions are coming up. But let me start with Sagarji and ask him. One
Just a moment,
is
Sagarji had to leave because he had got some urgent commitment.
Fair enough. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Let me ask Dr. Krishna. Now that private markets are allowed in addition to APMC, would your company GD Foods explore buying your raw material needs from private markets?
Sir, you are muted. Please unmute yourself.
Dr. Krishna, no? Krishna is
Yes.
muted. Yeah.
Dr. Krishna, you have to, yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah. We will definitely explore sourcing from the private markets, but our first priority will remain direct linkage with the farmers through a contract farming type of arrangement, so that we give the farmer a reasonable and remunerative price all through the crop, and also we are sure that we get the quantities and quality that we really require. Private markets, yes, definitely we should explore and definitely leverage with private markets as well.
Thank you. As far as ITC is concerned, it's a direct connect, corporate farmer connect directly. But Shom, as a large company, food processing company, procuring and accessing raw materials, would this new development of private markets and electronic trading, would that excite you? Would you be exploring that option?
Oh, absolutely, sir. In fact, we've been making a case for this for a long time with the government, and we are glad that it's finally come through. However, there still remains two pieces of the jigsaw which need to come together. One is that all the state governments must also fall in line. And as I speak to you now, this morning, I had a crisis meeting because we are just wrapping up our wheat buying campaign. And we have been hit by a flurry of notices by mandis across several states, which are asking for the cess. And it's very clear from the central government ordinance that so it's we need that coordination to happen. It's work in progress. I guess we will be able to sort it out sooner than later. Anything to do new, it's tough, but I guess we'll get there. The second thing is that for the farmer and for buyers like us, deepening of the commodity markets is very important. And I wish more and more agri-commodities would come on to the platforms like NCDX, MCX, etc., so that farmer has visibility of price. He knows what he is getting into, and he can get into price risk mitigation, and so can we. And it will really help so much in terms of taking the uncertainty away. Another piece of work, I think, which a lot of people have to do, and I'm being very honest here, and let me assure you, I only wear my jacket when I come to these forums. Otherwise, I don't wear. I normally wear a half-sleeve shirt because when you go to the farmers with the jacket on, and wo suit boot wala saab aa gaya, unka trust levels go for a 6. So what is very important for us is to build that connect, that trust with the farmer. And that is not something which a policymaker will be able to do. No government will be able to do that. That's up to us. And, that is what we need to focus on, and we are focusing on. And so I'll take 30 seconds more. I had one very powerful idea for ASSOCHAM to push forward to the government. It's an idea on doubling farmer income in India. So as you're very intimately aware of the palm oil market in India, we are, 60 to 70% of our edible oil requirement in India is imported, and a large percentage of that is palm oil. So, the idea is it's time that India is self-sufficient in edible oils. So that is one part. So we might do that by the GM route. The other route is really to encourage palm plantations in India. And this needs to be done. And one of the things that we've been thinking of, why can't it be contiguous? Which are the areas, geographies in India which have a tropical salubrious climate like Indonesia or Malaysia? And we realize that parts of the northeast, the Duas, the Kachar, then even in certain parts of south, we have such climate. And in many of the tea estates, it is there. And the tea estates also have the tea labor. The tea bush also requires a shade tree, and they used to grow it. It's in fact very synergistic if one were to try it out. Similarly, also intersperse palm with pepper and coca in South India. These are, and we need to do this, otherwise, as you probably are a Bhishma Pitama in this, but you know that what is going to happen to India's demand by 2030. And I think this can be a really, and what Indian Exchequer is spending nearly 75-80,000 crores per annum on importing palm oil. If this money can remain within the country, it helps everybody. So with that,
Thanks, Shom.
Yes.
Point well taken. I've been asked to write a policy paper for the National Oilseed Mission. I'm working on it, and obviously, oil palm will be one of the issues, one of the points to be taken forward. There is so much I can speak on oil palm, but this is not the time. We'll engage offline. But the concern that you expressed, that you've got notices from several state governments, some of these reforms, we must admit, have not gone well with some of the state governments. They have not taken kindly to this, because under the Indian Constitution, agriculture is a state subject and agri marketing is a state subject, and therefore some states think that the center is encroaching on their territory, but it's a very different legal and political
for the
debate
record,
that
it's for the record, it's not the state government. It's those mandi samitis in those states who have sent us the notices.
Right, that's right. They are the one. That's right. Because mandi committees, as I said somewhere, are highly politicized. We need to actually depoliticize them, and therefore they have a stranglehold, and they don't want to let go their rent-seeking dominance. But anyway, thanks for these inputs. I want to go to Aline. Is Aline around? Aline?
I think.
Aline, say yes. Aline, say yes. Yeah, okay. Aline, quite apart from all that you said, I want to know from you, there are two things. One, I would expect that NCDEX plays a role in identifying post-harvest marketing infrastructure projects. How would you respond to that suggestion? And number two, as India's leading agri-commodity exchange, how do you propose to enhance hedger participation?
Before I come to these two questions, one small response to Mr. Chatterjee's dilemma. I just thought taking care, because if Expo procures an aggregate from the farmers and then sends it to the processor, then it won't come into the purview of the mandi committee. So I think one way to go to the secondary phase rather than to the primary phase. And that is where I think e-commerce platforms are also doing those kind of activities, and of course, strategy can do, AML is trying to do. So they become the alternate channels that can be avoided. So, okay. Coming back to that was more on a personal note. Coming back to your first question in terms of identifying the farm-based infrastructure. Yes, I think we are trying to play a role. What we see and track is the production and the trade part. And when we, in our normal different discussion paper, and if you look up our, let's say, our commodity contract, and if you look at the delivery centers and the additional centers which are announced there, and they are maybe the first low-hanging fruit to start with in terms of these infrastructural aspects. And because that is where I think in my previous initial discussion I talked about the activity exists there, and that is where I think we can start. That's the first, I think that response to your first query. The second part, can you ask me again, sir?
Oh, the second part is what's your strategy to enhance hedger participation? Now that these markets are opened up, farmers have much better freedom to market. Processors and exporters and aggregators have a lot more freedom to enter into contract farming. Essential Commodities Act is removed. storage restrictions, etc. All this going to create a lot more interest and buzz and activity in the agri-commodity space, and therefore you need to get more hedgers on board, the processors, etc. What's your strategy?
So there are a couple of aspects here I would like to highlight. One is that, if you look at advisory by RBI, where they have said that any large lending, bank also should take up awareness building with those entities for commodity price management. So we need to see more and more such activities happening. The second, if you look at it again, there is a regulation for the listed company in terms of, I hope I am audible, in terms of in terms of listed companies who have to report their exposure as well as their hedging, similar to what they have for their dollars or foreign currency. The third is that what we are doing as a strategy is we are trying to encourage private companies to do risk management companies. Most of the companies, if you look at, they may not be even doing a hedge accounting system in place, or they may not be having a hedge policy in place, or I won't say hedge policy, a total risk management policy, overall risk management policy. Under which a price risk management should be part of that policy. That how do you manage price risk? The other aspect is that we are constantly doing these awareness and making people understand that why it is important. So look at classic example. Last year, maize prices were skyrocketing. And I had start companies coming to me saying that please teach us how to do price risk management. So the question becomes is that if you are prudent enough in your business, in terms of your top line and bottom line understanding, you will definitely do this risk management. It should be very rare. This is definitely one way. If you look at it, no international commodity trading houses have open exposure in their commodities. Acting as they procure or they have a sale order, they put a position on the offsetting position in the exchange track. So that is the habit which needs to be inculcated within our commodity trading company. Some organizations need to inculcate this within the small SME sector.
All right. Thanks, Salim. I want to go to Sarath. I don't have a specific question, but is there anything, some final parting thoughts that you want to share?
What I would say is that, electronic markets are a concept now whose time has come. Okay.
That's right.
And the government has recognized that. And they have very clearly said in their ordinance that electronic markets should be used across the country, and there is no special at the moment regulation. But I'm sure over a period of time, they will come out with rules as they have to under an ordinance or a law, and that will have some terms and conditions on who can operate, who can operate this electronic market, some safeguards around it, because at the end of the day, the farmer has to be the winner, come what may. That is what these reforms are about. It's not about electronic markets per se. The electronic markets are a means to an end. They're not the end in themselves. And so they will have to come out with a bunch of safeguards, possibly even a regulator, as to how these platforms can function and help farmers across the country. So I think there is some more time where over which these rules and new regulations will unfold, and I am looking forward to this very exciting phase in Indian agriculture. That's it from me.
Completely agree. Thank you very much. Anupama, do we wind it up? I don't see questions there on the chat.
Yes, sir, they are not that relevant. In fact, we have covered
Right.
most of these.
Okay, fine. Perfect.
They
Perfect.
speak more of regulations since the ordinances have come, but yes, regulatory part has to be covered yet. It is a discussion today.
So I'm going to conclude this event. but I can't do that without thanking all the panelists. Of course, Sagar Kaushik has left, but we have Dr. Krishna here, Sarath, and Somnath and Eileen. Thanks for very actively participating. This is every time I'm in these kind of webinars, there are new thoughts, new sparks, new ideas that keep occurring to me. And I want to compliment Nirupama and Dipankar for organizing this wonderful event. I can still see more than I saw more than 400 participants at some stage. I'm sure you have recorded this and you will share it with all the participants and particularly with all the panelists. And therefore, with this, let me conclude and say good luck and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for getting on board, and we'll keep you engaged in other programs as well. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.